All right, Nerdy Bones, we're back in the studio. What's up, Nick?
What's up, Keith?
I'm excited for today's episode. I put a lot of work in.
Yeah.
We set a standard for ourselves, and we're gonna start doing a lot more research, not just like off the top of our head, fucking ideas.
Yeah, we're not going and just watching YouTube videos the whole time.
Right. So today we're doing exorcism and spontaneous combustion, and I want to cite my sources for this.
Spontaneous human combustion.
Spontaneous human combustion. Thank you for the correction. But I want to cite my sources for this. It was the Encyclopedias of Demons and Demonology by Rosemary Ellen Gulley. And then my resources for...
Is it Gilly or Gully?
It's spelled Guily. So I get...
Okay.
Yeah. But my sources for spontaneous combustion is a book called Ablaze. And it's by Larry E. Arnold.
Okay.
So that's where I got like most of my accounts and theories about like how it could occur and stuff like that.
Yeah, and of course we're always doing what you playing, what you watching, and
This Day in History.
This Day in History.
Yep.
But without further ado, what's our first topic?
Okay, so initially what I want to start off with is the definition of both topics. Okay, so the definition of exorcism is the expulsion or the attempt of expulsion from an evil spirit from a person or place.
Okay.
That's from that book. Like you said earlier, that book is amazing. Dude.
It is.
So we're going to start doing that more. But so the definition of possession is the process by which an individual is possessed by a malevolent paranormal spirit, being commonly referred to as a demon or a devil. Those are the definitions of the two subjects. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. So what I initially wrote down was the process of just divining whether someone needs to have an exorcism or not, because the Vatican is very strict on whether they actually dole out somebody who's being allowed to even have an exorcism.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really weird. And like in a lot of my readings, they were like they don't let people have an exorcism unless they like actually go through and investigate it. Yeah. So
they're not just going in and be like, oh yeah, this person's possessed.
Yeah. Well, they take it really serious.
Yeah. Because it's because a lot of people consider it to be kind of a joke.
Exactly. And there's like cases of insanity really kind of play into that. But okay, so the signs of possession: loss of appetite, number 1. Number 2, cutting, biting, scratching on the skin. That's number 2. 3 is speaking in languages and tongues that has not previously been known to the individual. 4 is a cold feeling in the room. 5 is the possessed losing control of their normal personality and entering a frenzied state of anger and attacking other people. Number 6 is unnatural body postures, changes in the positions of the face and body. Number 7 is change in the person's voice. Number 8 is predictions of the future and events. Number 9 is my favorite, levitation and moving other objects in the room. Number 10, repulsion to speaking of the words God and Jesus. So basically a lot of it is like, when they like hold up a cross and they're like, the power of Christ compels you.
Yeah.
So what I have next is the process of exorcism. So in the process of exorcism, the person possessed may be restrained so they do not harm themselves or any other person present in the room. The exorcist then prays and commands the demon to retreat. The Catholic priest recites the prayers, the quote, Our Father, and the quote, Hail Mary. And then the final one, the Ephesian Creed. Those are the 3 rituals that are put together for an exorcism.
Okay. The
exorcist then follows the processes listed in the Ritual of Exorcism revised in the Vatican in 1999. Seasoned exorcists follow the Ritual Romanum as a starting point and not always following the same prescribed formula. The Gale Encyclopedia of the Unusual and Unexplained describes that an exorcism is a conflict, not simply a prayer. And once it has begun, it has to be seen through, no matter what, no matter how long. Because if the exorcist stops the rite, the demon will pursue him instead.
Ooh.
Right? Which is why the process being finished is essential. After an exorcism is finished, the possessed tend to have a feeling of release of guilt and release of sin. Not all exorcisms are successful. The first time it can take days, weeks, months, or even years of constant prayer. And that was the extent of what I researched on the process of exorcism and what's involved in it. And I did read some history about it was not allowed for a long time.
Yeah.
So what do you think about what I wrote down there?
Well, I was wondering, I don't know if you know, like, why they revised them in 99.
Because actually what I read is the rites of exorcism have actually been changed more than a dozen times.
Wow.
Yeah, like, because remember I mentioned, like, the specific rites,
Mm-hmm.
like the specific prayers?
Mm-hmm.
Those have been changed to what's, like, actually allowed to be used. Because, like, it's really weird. It's, like, there's been so many cases of exorcism that were, like, unsanctioned and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, excuse me. Excuse me. But a lot of them were, like I said, unsanctioned. And the church denounces that they even happened.
Wow.
Yeah, so, like, the big thing with exorcism is it's Catholic. It's a Catholic thing.
Yeah.
So, like, it's there's a lot of religions deal with, like, demonic possession or stuff like that.
See it in voodoo.
Yeah, voodoo is big in possession. Like, the
Well, you even see it in some like the snake handler type.
yeah,
You know,
the specific thing I read about voodoo is they call it the Dijin,
Mhm.
Dijin.
Mm.
Like, that's, like, whenever you, like, do an exorcism in voodoo, like, that's the spirit that you're typically
well, then you see it in like the kind of fire and brimstone, like preachers with like the speaking in tongues,
yeah.
which I think is honestly more of like a gimmick, maybe.
Well, I would say it is.
Yeah.
I would say it is. Like, speaking in tongues is like that's a Catholic thing too. Is you're just like
Well, but you see it in like other religions,
Yeah,
or in
yeah.
like Christian-based religions, maybe. I don't know.
yeah.
I can't really comment on that just because I don't know the beliefs of a lot of these.
Neither one of us
you
are
know.
actually very religious. Like,
But we find them. We find religion pretty interesting.
Mhm.
You know, especially with angels and demons.
Exactly.
Which coming up at the end of the month, we
Angels
will be
and
doing an
demons.
episode on angels and
That
demons,
one's
which
gonna
will be a
really good.
recurring one we want to do.
Yeah, once a month we're gonna either. Well, I'm typically gonna cover demons, and you're
Yeah.
typically gonna cover angels.
Yeah, but one of those things that I heard in there, or which was kind of weird to me, was about how the room goes cold,
Right.
and that to me sounds more like a ghost, or the way we think of it.
Well, it's like a drop in temperature. Like because I wrote it out a little bit differently
Mm-hmm.
than what it actually said in the book. It's a drop in temperature in the room and individuals in the room.
Okay.
So, like, you get cold spots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure you heard of cold spots
Oh,
before.
yeah.
But, like, the one that interested me the most, like I said earlier, was like the speaking in languages that the person has never heard before,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actual, like, correct.
Yeah.
what they're
Oh, that like
saying.
they speak in like Latin and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, all this I want to preface back to The Exorcist, because
Mhm.
now like you got me, you're telling me
Yeah.
all this stuff, and I'm like, this is The Exorcist, is The Exorcist, The Exorcist. But what I want you to get into now is you have it, or like famous cases,
Exactly.
and the first one is about The Exorcist.
Good setup.
Yeah.
So this is my personal favorite example.
Mm-hmm.
In 1949, Emily Schmidt underwent a 14-day exorcism in Erling, Iowa, performed by a Catholic priest. This is the most sanctioned case of demonic possession in history and a minor inspiration for the movie The Exorcist. The priest's name was Father Theophilus Reisner.
Theopolis.
I'll spell it out.
Mm-hmm.
Theophilous.
Wow, that's a hell of a name. You
Yeah.
don't hear those names nowadays.
That's kind of a gangster name, actually.
It is.
Like if I met somebody named Theophilus, I'd be like, okay. So my next one I wrote down is actually the time frame is actually 1975 to 1976. Like I said earlier, it's not always like successful in the first.
Yeah, that's another thing I didn't know is how long they really took,
Yeah.
or
So
how long they would like stay and perform these.
yeah. Well, and like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, like they can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
They can't, they can like take breaks and go home for the night,
Yeah.
but they can't just like say this is done
Mhm.
because in their belief that whatever demons there or whatever, like the big one that I read a lot was Legion. We are Legion. Like that's a lot of times when somebody's possessed, it's a lot more than one demon.
Didn't you read once like a specific
Belial.
demon is the one who tends to be the one that's possessing?
That's Belial.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So 1975 to 1976, Anneliese Michael was a woman from Germany who underwent 67 exorcisms.
Whoa.
Yeah. And which was also another inspiration for the film The Exorcist. They drew a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it also inspired The Exorcism of Emily Rose and the movie Requiem.
Mm.
In conference several years later, German bishops retracted the claim that she was even possessed.
Wow.
Yeah, she was found out to have epilepsy and a mental illness. But like I saw a lot of really weird imagery with this lady. I think I even showed you the imagery.
Oh yeah, it
for
was
her.
freaky as hell.
Yeah, like her body deteriorated. Like, and she was like, she's actually where they got the whole like.
But that does happen to mentally ill patients.
Yeah, but like she started getting sores and like sores like out of nowhere. Her teeth started falling out, and just really, really weird shit. You know, like,
that happens when you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah,
and if no one was taking care of her while this was going on,
they actually ended up putting her in a mental asylum.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she died at the age of like 67 or something like that.
Shit.
Yeah. So here's another one that I really enjoyed. Arnie Cayenne Johnson, marked in history for being the first person to plead innocent on account of demonic possession.
Wow.
Yeah. Arnie's case is well known as the demonic murder trial. His trial involved strange claims by people in the victim's vicinity, seeing a presence of an omnipotent being with a marred face and beastly features.
Damn.
He was on trial for stabbing his landlord while growling and speaking in tongues.
Huh.
He was convicted and served a sentence of 5 years that typically carried a sentence of 20 years. So that case, he only got convicted for 5 years, which the whole thing is stabbing somebody like that in an assault typically carries 20 years.
Shit.
Yeah, so that's all I really got.
It's a good lawyer he had there.
Yeah. Well, and there was a lot of people, like, when I read about it, there was a lot of people that actually were like, yeah, we saw these like omnipotent beings and like charred, like the word I kept come across was a charred face. Like these they kept seeing this thing with like a charred face. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. And so the next case I have is Annie Eckold. This is the way I wrote it out because this is what it was like in the book. It's a grotesque story of a 14-year-old girl born in 1882, cursed by her father who practiced witchcraft with his aunt. Annie became intolerant of religious artifacts, was sexually vile, and could not set foot in a church.
What does that mean? Was sexually vile?
I wrote those words out because she did the whole thing in the Exorcism.
Really? Yeah. Oh, okay. She was like vulgar.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those were the words I chose to use because like that's I didn't want to like I said, I don't want to be a shock jock.
Yeah.
So a successful exorcism was made, but the demonic possession was back after her father begged Satan for it. She was then admitted to a convent where she hissed, threw away blessed food, levitated, and spoke in foreign languages and could cling to walls. She deformed in appearance, and after 23 days and 3 exorcisms, the demon finally left. So
wow,
that's it for her. Like she.
The phrase that all of a sudden came to my mind was like, "Get thee to a nunnery." It's like, no, maybe he shouldn't have.
It got so bad that they took her to a church and basically left her there.
Even though he was a Satanist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think in the reading that I did, I think this is just my kind of takeaway from it. I think basically people took her from him.
Oh, okay.
Like that's what I get from it because they were practicing. Because basically she lived with her father and her aunt. And they were known practicing Satanists. And then this girl goes into
she just goes nuts,
climbing walls and sticking random things. And so
wow.
All right, so the last example. This is my favorite example because you're gonna know why. So now we get into David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, the serial killer who made New York terror-stricken in 1976. He went by the name of Son of Sam and the 44 caliber killer. Did you ever see anything about that?
I know a little bit about it, not anything crazy.
He was one of the ones that like before like Dahmer hit the scenes and stuff like that. Like that he was but I'll get into this. Reports confirm 6 people died and 7 more were mortally wounded or injured. That's actually what I wrote. In the summer of Sam, after he was taken into custody, he confessed all of his crimes and claimed that a demon residing in his neighbor's dog ordered him to kill. In jail with 6 life sentences, he admitted to being a part of a satanic cult and perpetuated all the murders in the ritual offering.
And he didn't claim that demon defense either, did he?
No.
Oh, shit.
No. Like his whole thing is that he just he actually saw some photos of him and actually saw some photos of the dog. And that dog was it was actually a Labrador Retriever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
that dog looked evil.
It's not that it looked evil, but like it'd be like your everyday dog. But in his like story, it kind of puts like a new context onto what it would be, and it's kind of creepy to think that he like sat there and like looked at this dog and he heard this dog talking to him in his brain. But that's I wanted to end with David Berkowitz simply because like I'm a serial killer nerd, and he was like the only serial, because I went out of my way to find a serial killer that like blamed it on like demonic possession.
No, that's cool. That's good. Yeah, I think you gave some pretty good cases on that.
Yeah. So I really love the fact that we're doing like this new research. Like it's a new thing for us, and like I realize it's clunky right now. Just
bear with us.
But as we get going, it's going to completely change.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be basically like a news show before we know it, dude. So do we want to do what you play and what you watching?
No, let's stay on this one a little bit. I mean,
okay,
talk about it. You always want to speed through, man.
I know. That's
you
my
do
problem.
this.
That's my problem.
What are were there any other cases that you just didn't write down that maybe or maybe little facts?
Well, one of the things about exorcism, the things that I looked into the most was like the what's the word, what describes an exorcism, like what you see, like when you walk into somebody that's like possessed, like the big thing is like repulsion to religious objects.
Yeah.
And one of the things I read about Judaism is they don't actually have any exorcism rites. That's just like, not that I found, at least, like not in my reading. That
I wonder if there are any cases out there of people who are Jewish being possessed.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because like most religions, most spiritualities have stories of being possessed. And like one of the things, I'm glad you actually...
Well, it's also been used as an excuse many times over probably centuries as just a way to be an excuse that someone's just nuts.
Well, and I'm glad that you actually prompted me to talk about this more, because I have something to say. So like my grandfather was an Irish preacher, and his whole...
I didn't know that.
Yes. And his whole thing was to let the Spirit of God take you, like have the Spirit of God come into your body. Wouldn't that be a form of possession?
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an accepted form of possession, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So like possession, like one of the things I've been, not to like go on a tangent, but one of the things I've been doing research for is True Crime Corner. With we're doing I'm just gonna plug.
Yeah.
We're gonna do Jeffrey Dahmer, but I started reading or listening to a book called Sons of Cain. And a lot of the big things, like, okay, so back in 1700s, 1500s, 1600s, a lot of the things that, like we had these people that still had these perpetuancies to do these things, and the way that we used to describe it was demon possession.
Yeah.
Like you were possessed by the devil and you became a werewolf, or you became a
it's the same thing with witchcraft.
Yeah, exactly.
People being accused of witchcraft.
Exactly. And like all through history, all through written down history, humans have done weird things, and the only way that we can explain it is possession.
Yeah,
like them not being who they actually were, or selling their soul.
We'll even see that with kind of the bring up topic of like UFOs, or for instance, like the asteroids coming down. Like we just like, oh, it's an alien, or in old cultures, or it's God like raining down fire on us when it was just an asteroid.
Exactly.
And they can actually, what's cool is they can actually go back into like core samples of like certain areas and find out what happened in that particular point in history. Exactly. And to be like, oh, it was a volcano that exploded, but they didn't know what it was. Or maybe an asteroid hit and it just kind of blew up this whole area around them. But they can actually go into the record in these core samples and find out what happened in that particular spot.
There was one instance I read. I think the guy's name was Frank, and it's either Anderson or Anderson. I forget how it's spelled. But basically, he was like talking to his wife about like how he was having all these like weird thoughts and whatever, and she decided, you know what, let's go see our priest. Let's go see our priest. And the the priest is like, you have 1,000 demons inside of you.
Jesus Christ!
And they did a 12-hour exorcism. And they're the think about it, like the power of Christ compels you. Like 12 hours of that, you're gonna get tired.
Yeah.
So like the priest proclaimed that like, okay, you have like 2 or 3 demons left. Let's come back in the morning and we'll finish. One of the demons that was still inside of him, quote unquote, by the priest, said that the demon of murder was still inside of him.
Oh shit!
So they went home. They went home for the night, and he ended up fucking killing his dog.
Whoa!
killing his wife and eating her face.
Jesus Christ.
And then they found him on the street covered in blood, having no idea what happened.
When was this?
73.
Oh, okay.
So it was either 73 or 75.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So basically, you know, like the whole thing is like, okay,
I'd more chalk that up to mental illness.
Well, it would have to be.
But I would have to know more about that case to find out if that guy ever showed those kind of tendencies before.
Exactly. And that's kind of interesting, though. They're like, for the priest to say, okay, one of the remaining demons in there is the demon of murder. You know,
but also, do you know if that was a sanctioned exorcism or not?
It was not.
Oh, see,
it specifically.
That's where I
not.
go more in the way of mental illness. If it was a sanctioned exorcism, because I never even knew about that.
Yes.
I would be more inclined to believe that maybe that guy was possessed, but because it was an unsanctioned exorcism, I kind of more believe that he was just mentally ill.
Right, because the Vatican would probably have been like, no, this guy just is fucking.
It's kind of cool. We can make that distinction now. Actually, that's really cool.
Yeah, the Vatican would probably have been like, this guy just needs to go to jail.
Now I got to ask, and this is a question, and I don't know if you have an answer for it or not.
I might have done a lot of reading.
But when did exorcism first start?
Well, the first case of exorcism in Catholicism was written down. I don't have the exact year, but I know it was in the 1400s. And it was in France. Like I didn't take time to write that down. But the first like person that was like did quote unquote the Vatican like decreed an exorcism, like there's demons in there, we have to get them out. It was in the 1400s in France.
Okay.
So like that's like the very first time that I found in my reading in the book that I cited as our source material. That's the very first one.
And you got to wonder if those, if just going back into like even into the 19th century, you know, the 1800s, like you got to wonder how many of those cases were, you know, maybe like possibly demon possessions.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I bet 90% of those cases were probably more than likely people who just had mental illness.
Well, I think mental illness would have to play a lot into it. It would have to play a lot into it because there's
but there's still exorcisms happening today.
Today. Like I kind of tried to not bring it up, but like one of the most famous exorcists of all time, his name was Constantine. And that's where John Constantine.
How can you not bring this up, man?
Well, I tried to not.
No, please bring this up.
I tried to not be like a one note guy, but I didn't get his first name because it's actually not written in history. He was like one of the first exorcists, and that's where you actually get the name for the character John Constantine because he's an exorcist.
Yeah.
So, but like
for those who don't know, it's a comic character.
Yeah, exactly. But
you might have seen Keanu Reeves play him.
Yeah, and he's actually in the Bible.
Is he?
Constantine is in the Bible. Yeah, so it's really.
But that guy was even further back into before they even start performing exorcisms.
Exactly. Is in Christianity, there's no such thing as exorcism.
No.
In Christianity, there's no.
And you actually hear those cases about people who are Christian and have what they think is someone possessed by a demon, and they're like, and Christians are like, we don't believe in exorcism, so they actually go to Catholic priests.
I actually have
like, look, we're not Catholic, but we think they're possessed by the devil or whatever,
a demon. I actually have something to put in there.
Yeah,
because the whole thing in Christianity, Christians believe in their core belief that if you are a Christian and you are quote unquote the son of God or a son of God, that you cannot be possessed by a demon. Like the core Christian belief is you cannot be possessed. Like if you've accepted quote unquote Christ into your heart, you cannot be possessed. Yeah. So that's why it's just straight out does not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You're hitting me with a lot of knowledge, man.
Yeah. Like I said, dude.
Hopefully we're hitting all our listeners out there with a lot of knowledge too.
Like I said, I went balls deep into this one.
Yeah.
Well, I went balls deep before, but I just like saying
you're going to continue going balls deep.
I just like saying balls deep. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this topic in particular.
Seems like you did.
Well, I watched a couple documentaries, but I personally decided to go with the information from the Encyclopedia of Demons and Demonology, because that seemed to me to have like the most like solid. Because I watched a bunch of like YouTube videos and History Channel documentaries, but they don't really cite anything like specific. They're just like oh yeah, and they climbed walls and their head spun and blah blah. You know, like it just didn't for me didn't.
Well, so we're going in exorcism, but I mean in possession. But are there people who were possessed by things other than demons?
I've actually I read some possessions of angels.
Okay, yeah, actually, I'd like to hear about that.
The main one I read was Raphael and Michael.
Okay,
and there's no real stories on it. Like what I read was that these people claimed that they had an angel inside them. They didn't do anything evil. They didn't do anything necessarily just. But they claimed that they heard the word of God, and they were taken over by they accepted this entity into their body. Which is like a really neat like example is like the TV show Supernatural. Like because like Castiel and all, like they had to actually accept the angel into their body, right? Yeah. So like that's maybe that's where the writers of the show got that. But like to have an angel possession, from what I read, you had to be willing. Okay. You had to basically more or less be confronted and asked. So I thought that was really. I'm glad you brought that up because I fucking read so much shit over the last week. Like there's just so. You
love it though.
I do. Like I've got like this new obsession with fucking research.
And I just want to say if you enjoyed this segment, look forward to. Or if you're listening to this later on, Angels and Demons.
That's gonna be so good.
It's gonna be such a fun episode for us. And like I said, we want to make it like a monthly topic for us. Yeah. We don't care how many people listen to it. We're just gonna do it. Because and of course we want to preface this whole thing by saying we are not religious in the least.
Not at all. But nor are we scholars.
But we find the subject just really fascinating.
Exactly.
You know, it's just interesting to even if it's real, cool. If it's fake, cool.
Yeah, we'll find out in the end.
We just we just enjoy it a lot. We enjoy talking about it and reading about it and discussing it.
So where are we going from here?
I don't think if I wanted to kind of end this with anything else.
Well, like I really enjoyed the research for this topic. Yeah. And just for the listeners out there, like I'm personally trying to get better at reading out loud. And I have to preface that because I know I sound like a robot. Yeah. But the thing is like in the Nerdy Bones episodes in the past, we just went off the cuff. But hopefully
we're always tooting our own horn, man. Yeah, but hey, we're proud of it.
But like
we're vain.
Well, not that we're vain, but what I'm pointing out is there's a change in the format of the show. It's not going to be like this.
We're just trying to get it right.
Well, we're still figuring out our fucking sea legs. Dude.
Yeah. And the people that are listening right now, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much for listening to us. We really appreciate it.
So let's bring the whole topic of demon possession and
the last thing I wanted to say was, do you believe that people are possessed by demons?
I believe. Okay, so I'm not religious, but I'm a practicing Buddhist. I'm very spiritual. I believe that it could be a possibility.
Oh, I like that.
I don't like to put, like in Buddhism, you don't put finalities on anything. Like I believe that it could be a possibility.
Yeah. And like I always say, I want to believe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's always kind of my motto on this show is I want to believe.
Yeah, like because it could be one of those.
I'm always open though. I never completely discount something.
Right.
I try to be open to what's out there.
Yeah. Like I believe that it could have happened, or believe that people believe that it's been happening to them. You know, like, so that's a big thing with, like we were talking about, like with mental illness. Like maybe some of these people truly believe that they are possessed. And, you know, and that's actually like I was talking about in that court case. That guy truly believed that he was possessed.
Hey, he got less time.
He did. Yeah, he got 5 years on something that would be
20-year mandatory. Yeah. So good for that guy. Like I said, he had a good lawyer.
He had to have had a good lawyer.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get into our first segment of the show now.
What you playing? What you watching?
So what you playing? What you watching, Keith?
I actually just last night I watched Downsizing.
I've seen that before. I like that one. I
like the fuck out of it.
Matt Damon. Yeah. Where he pretty much gets himself downsized or like shrank.
I think the whole thing is they become one sixth of their original size. Yeah. And the whole point of the movie was like humans are expanding too much, and there's too much consumption of product and oxygen and whatever. But
and also their income would like translate like
into millions of dollars. Into millions of dollars. What I thought was fucked is like when he when he gets the downsizing treatment, his wife fucking abandons him.
Oh yeah, she's about to go through it. It's like, I can't do this. I can't leave my friends and family forever.
Well, the whole reason, I remember I watched it last night. Her whole reasoning is they shaved her eyebrow, and she like stopped him halfway like through shaving her eyebrow.
Yeah. And he's like, I just fucking went through this. Like, are you serious?
Because it's an irreversible procedure.
Yeah.
But like towards the end of the movie, they end up going to like Norway, and there's like this end of the world cult. And,
it's a cool movie.
I enjoyed the fuck out of it.
I enjoyed it.
The other thing that I've been obsessively watching is The Rookie.
Okay.
And the newest episode came out on Hulu today, and I cannot recommend that show highly enough.
Yeah.
I also have to kind of take a caveat that it's Nathan Fillion. I'll watch anything with him.
Yeah, he's always great.
But like I'm not gonna give spoilers. Watch that show.
I wish he'd do a sci-fi show again, man.
Dude, that's what he's born for.
I hope maybe one day he'll pop up on the Orville as like a captain.
Oh, dude. Speaking of which, I just watched the new 2 episodes of the second season of the Orville.
Oh, we watched the first one after last episode. Yeah. So I got to watch that one now.
I'm not gonna tell.
That's what we're gonna do.
I'm not gonna tell you nothing.
Good.
I'm not gonna tell you.
I want to watch it.
Yeah. We'll watch that. Well, like you guys know that for every episode we have a tradition where we make food. Mm-hmm. So tonight, when I'm gonna make some fucking chili, my chili, and then we're gonna watch the Orville.
Sweet. You got anything else?
No, that's what I've been really like. I've been watching it. Like I told you. Last night I watched The Masked Singer.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, dude, it's just this like new like reality show. Mm-hmm. I know what you're talking about. Where it's like a huge famous person goes out on stage completely.
And it could be a singer or an actor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's only like one episode out on Hulu, but I enjoyed the fuck out of it, dude. Says the man who watched America's Next Top Model last week. And I completely admitted that I watched it.
You did.
And my whole thing is like because I remember watching it with a girlfriend about like 10 years ago, and that's how I even know what the show is. But I was like looking through on Hulu, and like it came up as like, you might like this. And I was like, okay, hot girls in bikinis. I'll click on this.
Yeah.
And I watched like fucking 7 episodes of that shit. And I was like, well, what the fuck? Why do you even care about like the whole thing that I noticed that it caught my attention more than like hot girls in bikinis?
Yeah.
Was these girls fucking arguing. like, wait a minute. Like I've never cared about something like.
I watched something recently. It was like Tom Papa or something. He was talking about like he almost got it was on the H3 podcast, and he was talking about how he almost got hired as like a Jared's brother, like Jared from Subway.
Really?
And he shot like 3 commercials, and then all of a sudden
Tom Papa?
I don't know if it was Tom Segura, maybe.
Might be
Tom Segura.
Tom Papa is pretty awesome though.
But yeah, he talked about it, and apparently
they
shot like 3 commercials. He was like, and if they would have aired, he would have gotten like $250,000 or something. But some new advertising agency boss, or the advertising agency boss, like they got a new one, and they always like to make their marks. So as soon as like this guy came in, they just like, no, we're not doing those.
No.
And he would have played Jared's brother.
Well, because is he still in jail?
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah.
Well, dude, yeah,
we're not going to get into it.
He was not a good guy.
We're not going to get into that, but yeah.
Anyway, I want to say, what I've been watching. I will say, I always find myself coming back to this all the time. If I'm up at like 5, 6, 7 in the morning, because I just want to fall back asleep, I always put on Angry Video Game Nerd.
Oh, okay.
Always. Cinemassacre, my absolute favorite YouTube channel. I watch it like almost every day, honestly. Even the stuff I probably watched seasons of Angry Video Game Nerd over like 6, 7 times by now. But I just wanted to say I was watching that. I love Cinemassacre a lot. James Rolfe, who does Angry Video Game Nerd, is just fucking awesome. He did an episode recently actually with Macaulay Culkin.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, how the fuck do you get Macaulay Culkin?
Well, I saw
But they did Home Alone games.
Well, I saw Macaulay Culkin just did a Google commercial.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, where he's like Home Alone, but it was like Google. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, he's got a YouTube channel. I think it's called Bunny Ears. I haven't seen anything on it, though.
It's called Bunny Ears.
Yeah, I haven't watched anything.
Because he talked about it on Rogan.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was on Rogan.
I want to download the episode and listen to it. Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting conversation to listen to.
Yeah, the Podfather.
I like how you dubbed him that. The Podfather.
No, I didn't come up with that term.
No?
No, I didn't come up with that term. Yeah, I wish I could take credit for that.
That'd be a good one.
I wish I could take credit for that.
All right, so what else I've been watching? I watched Indiana Jones and or was it Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Oh, so good.
Because they just put the Indiana Jones movies on Netflix.
What?
Yeah, all of them are on Netflix. Even the shitty Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I'm tempted to watch again just to really remember how bad that movie is. and be like, they totally raped like Indiana Jones.
Well,
like South Park did an episode about that.
Yeah. Well, they were just trying to put out another Indiana.
Well, the problem was they just fucking let Lucas do his thing, and no one's like telling him no. Yeah. That's why the prequels are so bad, because Lucas never had someone telling him no. Because that's what was great about the original trilogy was like he kind of handed it off to other people.
Spielberg.
And he had producers, because you hear about all the shit he wanted to put in the original Star Wars, and you're like, are you fucking serious? But he had producers saying, no, you can't do this. And that's what made those movies good. When he had a producer over him saying, you shouldn't do this, who actually was like, would tell him like, you can't do this, unlike people who are like producers later on in the prequels were like, oh yeah, that sounds great. He didn't have a bunch of yes men. The movies turned out a lot better, but he always had yes men around him for years on. And even with King of the Crystal Skull, he still had yes men around him. And it was like, that's why it was so fucking bad. Even though he didn't write it, he still came up with the story and everything. And it's like, good God,
well, it was still an Indiana Jones movie, but it wasn't.
Somewhat.
But it wasn't what we grew up with.
No, not at all.
It was not.
Well, they're saying they're going to do another one.
What?
Yeah.
What?
But
you know what I think they should do?
Well, Spielberg said he's going to do another one, because I mean, you can only get Spielberg to direct those.
You know what I think they should do? They had a TV show in the
Young Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Yeah. Was River Phoenix the one who starred in that one?
Because
he did play Young Indiana Jones in Last Crusade, which I was watching Last Crusade yesterday.
I don't know if it was him that did the TV show.
I don't know who it was,
but it showed him like getting the classic scar on Harrison Ford's
That was from
lip.
Last Crusade.
Yeah.
It was a whip when he was trying to whip a lion. But yeah, that's it for. Well, I just love Indiana Jones. I mean, come on. So many people have been inspired by that movie to become archaeologists, even though archaeology is nothing like that.
Indiana Jones is one of my favorite like movies of that time.
Oh, totally.
I would have to like.
It's a timeless film too, because I was thinking like, oh, when was this made? It was like, late '80s, I think. But it's like you still watch now. It's like it's a timeless film. It still looks fantastic. It's still awesome. And it's just a good story, and it's just well directed, well written. It's just, and they're fun movies.
Well, like after that, I have to go like maybe Conan, and then
those are a good one.
My personal favorite is Mad Max. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah. But so what else I'm watching? The last thing I got is I watched it. So I was like looking for something new to watch on Netflix for a TV show, and they really hadn't put anything out in the last week.
Well, forgive me if I've already mentioned this, but I've been watching I Am a Killer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's I don't recommend that unless you're into the topic, because it's actually.
Well, a couple weeks ago I was watching all those like true crime shows.
Yeah.
Watching Making a Murderer and an Innocent Man.
Well, like I Am a Killer is actual interviews with people on death row.
Yeah.
And like unless you're into that, I don't recommend it. But that's like something I've been watching.
Yeah. So the last thing I was watching was it's a show like I said, I was looking for something. I was like, oh, this looks kind of interesting. It's called Good Girls, and I guess it's on NBC, and it's pretty much almost like a Breaking Bad meets like, oh God, like Weeds in a way.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much these women. They're kind of like they're like these suburban housewives. It stars Christina Hendricks from like Mad Men, and also actually to go back, she was Yosef Bridge.
Yes, she was. She was.
I wanted to refer to her as Yosef Bridge.
Oh,
Saffron from Firefly.
A huge crush of mine.
Oh, me too, man. Me too. But she is so awesome on this show. It's like her and like two other girls. Like I said, like suburban housewives type thing. Well, one of them isn't. She's Christina Hendricks' sister, and then they have another friend, and they just like realize like we need fucking money, so they go and they like rob a grocery store that one of them actually works at.
Oh shit.
And they get all this money, and they're like, there shouldn't be this much money here. And then it goes into like some gang shows up, and it's like, hey, you need to fucking pay us back our money. And then they go into like money laundering, and it's fucking nuts, dude. It's really good though. Like I really enjoyed the show. Like by the end, and I was a little embarrassed to say I watched it, but I'm like, I enjoyed it, and I kind of want to look forward to another season, even though another season won't be on Netflix until like January of next year.
Really. I was looking at some of the new shit that's on the
but it's called. I want to say again, it's called Good Girls.
Good Girls.
Good Girls.
Who are the actors in it again?
Well, I really can only remember Christine Hendricks. Matthew Lillard actually plays her husband.
Did you see that Titans hits Netflix on January 11th?
It's not. No. That's only internationally.
What?
Yeah.
garbage.
It's on the DC streaming service. And in fact, Young Justice just started coming out. I guess they're putting out 3 episodes every Friday.
I've been watching simply through.
I'm just gonna wait until it hits like Blu-ray and just buy it.
Right. Well, it's definitely worth it. Like I personally have. I'm not gonna incriminate myself, but I personally have the first 4 episodes of Titans on a jump drive.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
I watched a bunch of clips from the season finale where Batman was killing everybody. But apparently that was like a dream or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've only absorbed like the first 4 episodes.
Yeah.
But I cannot recommend that show highly enough.
Yeah.
Like if you're a fan of those characters at all, like the sheer violence, the sheer violence that's portrayed in that show, they finally take DC. Like DC is like
that show's super violent. They swear and everything.
There's sex, the whole 9 yards, son. The whole 9 yards.
It's crazy.
But like DC is kind of categorized as being like grittier than Marvel, but their characters are more gritty than Marvel.
True.
That there's nothing wrong with that. Like last night I rewatched Iron Man 2, and I forgot how just tongue in cheek it is.
Yeah, that was like considered one of the bad Marvel movies though.
Dude, the one for me was Iron Man 3. I almost asked for my money back.
I liked that. I think I liked that one more than 2.
Dude, Iron Man 3 was garbage.
My Iron Man 3 wasn't that great either.
But I'm saving this. I haven't.
What?
For this day in history.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, let's move on to that. Let's do this
so
day in history.
As of yesterday, this day in history marks 17 years of Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine.
Wow.
17 years, dude.
Well, he stopped 2 years ago now.
Must have.
So he did for 15 years.
Well, Logan particularly is my favorite.
Logan was fantastic.
Logan, I cry at the end every fucking.
And again,
time.
it solidified the fact that we want rated R, comic films.
Well,
because honestly, they were like, oh, we don't want to have those PG-13 or we don't want to have those R-rated movies because it gets away our audience or whatever. It's they gotta realize most of the audience they have, probably good 80% of the audience is people above the age of 18.
Well, right, exactly.
People do want those movies they can take their kids to.
Yeah.
But dude, I've been in a few rated R movies where they have people have their fucking 8-year-old kid, and I'm like, why the fuck can you have your 8-year-old with you?
What are you doing?
It's let's go see Deadpool. It's I could understand that one a little more, just because it's more tongue in cheek, like you said.
Well,
but still,
I have something in my head that I have to say is okay. So the way Hugh Jackman played Wolverine speaks to me as a lifelong comic book fan. So this is put this down so I can. Yeah. Right. So the scene at the end of Logan, you can actually find it on YouTube. It's called the woods or the forest scene, to where so all the it's long enough to a spoiler alert. Fuck off. But all the kids are getting led away by the Argus agents and all that, and then Logan basically injects himself with all that serum.
Oh yeah.
And then you hear in the distance,
oh yeah,
and
he goes berserk.
And all of the Argus agents are like, oh fuck,
yeah,
the Wolverine, and he comes up and just rips through these guys, and then he fucking his claws are bloody and I'm getting goosebumps just even thinking about it. But his claws are bloody and he stabs this guy in the chest and he pulls his claws out and he does the classic stance you guys can't see me, but fists up and he just every single time I'm like, fuck, that's badass.
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
That's badass. So there's nobody else out there that's ever portrayed, other than Ryan Reynolds, that's ever portrayed a comic book character so fucking perfectly.
I think I'd have to argue
maybe Christopher Reeves.
I'd have to say Chris Evans.
As
Captain
okay.
Captain America. Actually, Christopher Reeves is another good one.
Yeah, you make a point with.
Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is pretty
perfect.
You're right. And Nick Fury.
You're right.
Which will be in the new Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Who else? I really thought they did well with Thanos. I thought
Josh Brolin.
With Josh Brolin.
Yeah, that was good. I liked his portrayal.
The guy they got to play, Chadwick Boseman played Black Panther.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah.
So you're like,
right.
I don't think.
Yeah, you're
no. That Marvel tends to cast pretty well.
My
even opinion, actually what is it? The guy who plays Hulk.
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo is fucking great as the Hulk.
I personally liked Edward Norton better.
Nah, I like Mark Ruffalo. He brings a little.
Not that I don't like it.
Yeah,
but I liked. I personally liked.
And Chris Hemsworth as Thor. He's a perfect Thor, man. You are totally like, oh. I don't think it's anybody as perfect. It's like I just named you like fucking like 5.
You're right. You're right.
Marvel tends to cast pretty fucking well.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But I still have to go with Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine.
Oh yeah, he was the best. And Patrick Stewart as Professor X. There's another one.
Stop it, Nick.
What is it? Ian McKellen as Magneto.
I could have that one. I could.
That
take
one
it or
I
leave
could.
it.
Yeah.
I could take that one or leave it.
But
who's the guy that played Nightcrawler? He was really good. Kurt Wagner.
I know his name.
Of the Munich Circus.
Alan Cumming.
Was that his name?
Yeah, Alan Cumming.
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah.
Rebecca Stamos as Mystique. That was good. Or one of my personal new favorites is I don't know the actor's name. In the Deadpool movies as Colossus.
Oh yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he's really
and Cable actually. Josh Brolin again.
Josh Brolin is Cable.
He's perfect Cable.
Yeah, Josh Brolin is Cable. Yeah, that was bringing him in as Cable was a stroke. Oh, you know what? Danny DeVito is the Penguin.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
That's a stroke of genius right there. Yeah, but then you get into like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. And,
anyway, what else you got for this day in history?
Oh,
you got anything else?
Yes. On this day in history in 2007, Steve Jobs debuted the iPhone.
So 12 years ago.
Yep.
Wow, we've only had iPhones for 12 years.
We've only had
smartphones
for 12 years.
Even though like everyone's got one now. It's amazing how fast we adopted that technology.
Well, it just became the norm.
Yeah.
It just became the norm.
It's always funny when I have friends now who like still have like flip phones.
I know a couple people that have flip phones.
Yeah, I work with a guy who's still got like
what are you
it's
doing,
not even a flip
man?
phone, it's just more of a brick type phone. Just a smaller brick.
Well, like the first one I had,
the old Nokias.
Well, the first one I had stepping towards that was a BlackBerry. But you know,
oh yeah,
but people still have BlackBerries.
Oh yeah, even though that company's pretty much dead. You got any more?
I do. I have 2 more.
Okay, hit us.
So in this day in history, in 1976, Stallone played Rocky for the first time.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's pretty iconic right there.
It is. And then on my kind of note, and on this day in history in 1984, the Hillside Stranglers were committed to life in prison.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right. I actually have one.
Okay.
I saw today on Instagram from Star Wars. On this day in 1987, Star Tours opened in Disneyland.
That's what. Did you see?
Well, I don't know if it was. It just said Star Tours open, so I'm not sure which park it was. It might have been Disneyland. It might have been Disney World. But I've ridden that ride. Like the last time I was in Disneyland when I was like 12. So it was like, oh god, like over 20 years ago. Because I remember I went to Disneyland. It was like a week after Tomorrowland had reopened.
Oh shit!
I actually rode like the rocket rods after they got but I was actually there before that too. That one time, and I rode the People Movers, and I really really wish they'd bring back the People Movers. But yeah, Star Tours. I remember riding Star Tours a couple times, and it was always like a ton of fun. And you go through like the queue to get there, and you see like C-3PO and R2-D2, and it's just a great fucking ride, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're still going to keep it in Tomorrowland because they're opening Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Dude, I think next year. I watched some fucking video on that. Dude, I've never been to a theme park in my life. Yeah. I'm going to that.
Yeah.
I might just move there.
That's one thing. Like, if we were like make money off this, you know, which we'd like to, of course. What podcaster wouldn't want to make money off doing it? But I want to do like a little theme park tour. Because one thing I want to do is like go to Magic Mountain.
Yeah.
Because we have an episode on Magic Mountain, which I really love doing.
Yeah.
And I want to ride like every single roller coaster there.
If I could get paid for research, I'd be putting in like 60 hours a week. Dude.
But dude, me and you would totally take a vacation to like Disney World or Disneyland and Magic Mountain and all that shit, and just like and just have fun with it.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's get into our second topic of the night: spontaneous human combustion.
And like I said, I don't know where I really came up with this idea, but it was something that I really saw a lot of like documentaries on in like the late 80s and early 90s.
It's a very interesting subject. I mean,
and there's a lot of like kind of speculation of like what it could be caused by. And the big thing is actually documented as happening. It's actually documented as happening. Referred to as spontaneous human combustion, the concept of combustion of a living human body without external source of ignition, the fire believed to start with inside the human victim. The idea in terms of SHC, which I'm going to start using tonight as just combustion, were both first proposed in 1746 by Paul Rowley, Rolli, in an article published in the Philosophical Transitions, which I thought you think that was cool.
By the way, I gotta say, I'm glad we started spelling the names out because me and Keith are both really bad
saying foreign names.
At saying, yeah. we're bad.
So,
we're bad readers.
Yeah, we're bad readers. So
we're working on it.
We're getting there. We're gonna get there.
Anyway,
in the Philosophical Transitions, writing in the British Medical Journal in 1938, Connor Gavin Thuston describes the phenomenon as having the attention and attracting not only the medical field, but the common man. In his book in 1995 titled Ablaze, which where I got most of this content from, Larry E. Arnold wrote that there had been about 200 cited reports of combustion worldwide over a period of over 300 years.
Damn.
Yeah, 300 years of it, dude.
And we still have no clue what causes it.
Yeah, exactly. The topic received coverage in the British Medical Journal in 1938. An article by BLA, that's literally it was the acronym, it was the abbreviation. BLA, it was, you know what I'm saying?
His initials?
Yeah, his initials, BLA.
Okay.
Cited the commonalities of recorded cases. I've got 6 of these. So in number 1, the victims are chronic alcoholics.
Okay. I can relate.
I
just had to throw that in there.
They're usually elderly females. This is one that I didn't quite understand, but I wrote it out verbatim.
So alcoholic elderly females.
This is one I didn't quite understand, but I wrote it out verbatim. That way we can maybe talk about it. The body has not burned spontaneously, but some lighted substance has come into contact with it. That's what spontaneous combustion is, though. That's weird, right?
So it could be like a cigarette hits the skin?
Yeah, exactly. I'll read it again just to... The body has not burned spontaneously, but some lighted substance has come into contact with it. But these are like the checkpoints for like spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, but that's usually what you think about when you think of lighted substance. So it's like, people who fall asleep with like a cigarette in their hand and it just maybe hits them.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Well, now I'll kind of come into when I talk about the wick effect later.
Yeah.
So number 4, the hands and feet fall off. Like, it's weird that the hands and feet don't burn.
Yeah, we've seen some pretty gruesome pictures about like where it's like the hands and the feet are the only thing left.
So, and then number five is the fire has caused very little damage to nearby combustible things and objects. Contact with the body, like physically in contact with the body, will not light fire.
Like the chair they were sitting in when it happens. I wonder if these people are all asleep when this happens.
It seems to be.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, it seems to be. Like, I didn't...
Because they're usually sitting down, aren't they?
Almost, yeah. Every fucking time.
Okay.
Every fucking time that I looked up, the person was in a state of rest.
Okay.
You make a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't even trying to.
So number 6, the combustion of the body has left a residue of greasy and I don't know what this word means, but fetid, FETID. So I'll just read it again. The combustion of the body has left a residue of greasy and fetid ashes in quote unquote an offensive odor.
I think fetid would be more mean now, and I might totally get this wrong. Somebody's gonna fucking be like, he's wrong. But fetid, I think is more like spaced out.
Okay, yeah, like I didn't take the time to look that word up, so I'll just go ahead and say I didn't look.
You failed, man. You failed on this whole segment now.
Oh fuck! All right, so I'm gonna continue.
Anyway.
Alcoholism is a common theme in early combustion theory references, in part because of some Victorian era physicians and writing believing combustion was a result of alcohol in the blood.
Alcohol in the blood?
That's, yeah. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like, it's because you think about your blood alcohol content. Like, I don't even know if that's actually a thing. Like
what, blood alcohol content?
Well, like blood or alcohol actually being in your blood.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
That's the thing. I mean, that's what they use to, like, if you got if you're getting breathalyzed or whatever, it's like your blood alcohol content was such and such.
Does that actually mean that there's actually alcohol in your bloodstream?
Yeah.
Interesting.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to continue. Paranormal researcher Brian Dunning stated combustion stories are simply rare cases of a natural death in isolation, then followed by a slow combustion from some nearby source of ignition.
Like a lighter or a cigarette.
Yeah. He further stated that reports of combustion should be called unsolved deaths by fire. I think that's kind of interesting. So what I want to get into next is like my favorite theory of what combustion would be.
Okay.
So it's called the wick effect. The wick effect is a hypothesis that suggests that a small internal flame source, such as a burning cigarette, chars the clothing of a victim at a location. So basically that means at a location basically means like a cigarette falling on your pant leg or something like that. So that continues in the in the burning. Then that ends up splitting the skin, releasing subcutaneous fat, which in turn is absorbed into the burning cloth, acting like a wick. So does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's
it does.
It's kind of like a candle.
That's what I was thinking. I was like a candle, like because there are those instances of people making candles out of human fat.
Well, yeah, exactly. They did that for a long time.
Yeah,
like human fat is, or not human fat, but fat in particular is long used as.
I'm sure people make candles out of human fat. I'm sure that was a thing.
So may I continue?
Yeah.
This combustion can continue as long as the fuel is available. This idea has been successfully tested with pig fat and is consistent with the evidence in combustion cases.
Really?
Yeah. So they've actually like tested it and it works. The whole wick concept works because like once human body fat becomes lit and starts to melt, it works just like a candle.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and then, like I went through and actually looked at some like conventional ideas of like how this could start and how it could work, and like one of the big things I was looking at was like demonic possession and stuff like that. That's kind of why I kind of decided to put these two topics together.
Yeah.
So, but I put together, excuse me, I put together some cases just like I did with Exorcism of just like the most famous like cases of spontaneous combustion.
Okay.
The first case of combustion in the history books is Paulus Victoris. Paulus was an Italian knight. Like, so that's kind of interesting. Like a knight was like the first case in the history books.
What year was this?
It was actually in the 1400s. He was a knight who liked wine, women, and quote unquote song. He drank 2 large jugs of a very strong wine one night, and it made him sick. Like the wording that I read is it didn't agree with him, but I wrote it made him sick. People say he immediately vomited up flame, and then quickly burst into fire.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That makes me think like he like vomited like near like a candle or something.
Exactly,
and just
right?
like, that flame like caught fire and just kind of went back into his body.
Right. Well, it's like think about like fire breathing.
Yeah.
You know, like that you might actually make a good point there. You know, it's like because he drank a bunch of wine. Like the stuff that I read is like he drank enough alcohol to be able to blow on a flame.
Shit.
And make
you wouldn't really think that happening from wine. You would think more like, you know, like moonshine
or vodka or whiskey or something like that.
Something with like a high alcohol content.
Yeah. Well, wine's got a pretty high alcohol content.
Not that high though. It's like, well, if like you ever get a shot at a bar and you want like it to be
Flambe.
like, if you want it to flame, it needs to be like a higher alcohol content.
Yeah. Well,
like at least probably get like 40-50%.
I think it's 40 before it'll catch fire.
But do you see the flaming shots? It's usually like a shot of like Bacardi 151.
Right. Have you ever done a flaming shot before?
Maybe once.
I've never even had the chance to do to like I don't know
like that blue flame. But I'll be at work and like work in the kitchen and like you see stuff flame up all the time. When they're cooking with alcohol, it just whiskey or tequila or whatever. Like you see a flame on it.
Well, you get the like you said the blue you get the blue flame from an alcohol burn.
Yeah,
that's very specifically alcohol. Mm-hmm. But in continuing, no one else had any problem with that wine that night. Mm-hmm. And ending on that specific story, everybody was baffled. Yeah, that's like literally like what I read. It was like everybody was like, "What?
Like what just happened?" It's like all of a sudden the next day, like some guy's telling their friend, like, "Dude, I was in the bar last night. This guy fucking caught fire.
He like coughed up flame.
He coughed up flames. And he caught fire. It's like." Is he dead? He's fucking dead, dude.
He caught fire. Like, and the thing is, like, what I thought, the reason I specifically chose that guy is he was a fucking knight.
Yeah,
he was a knight.
Obviously, he was a huge drunk though.
Hey, dude. Well, in the 1400s, for us today to acknowledge him as a big drinker, that was like probably something that he did a lot.
Yeah.
So the next one I wrote down was Gannett K, which I used just the last letter of her name because I told you earlier it's like a 14-syllable last name.
Okay.
So she lived with her husband and her son in France in 1970. When her husband went missing, she contacted the police and they couldn't find him. That's just kind of like a side note to literally the day that this happened, her husband has disappeared. So no, it's actually, I'm sorry, I retract that. It was a few days later what I wrote. A few days later, while her son was out playing, turning the page, while son was out playing, neighbors found her body reduced to ashes other than her legs and her fingers.
Shit.
And other than her legs and her fingers and otherwise and an otherwise untouched apartment. Yeah. Like,
just that one spot.
Yeah. Just like, and it's like when I actually looked this up, the story that I found was called The Tale of Two Disappearances. So like her husband disappeared and was never found.
Yeah.
Her husband was never found. And then she fucking caught fire.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, like a lot of these cases are women.
Yeah.
But like, that night is also a different, story. Like he was probably, I picture like a 14th century or 1400s knight in France, like is this big strapping guy.
Yeah.
So
you would think so.
So the last case I decided to put on the show because this one I thought was really cool. His name was Jack Angle, who had been hospitalized with severe burns, brought a court case against the manufacturer of the water heater company at the cost of $3 million.
Shit.
Claiming that when he went to check on the heater, it blew and scalded him. However, a doctor noted his body burns were from the inside out, not the outside in.
That inside out.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
That's blowing my mind, dude.
Yeah, exactly. I actually looked at the medical what do you call it the medical case. It like the doctor stated that all of these burns originated tissue wise from the inside out.
That's coming from a doctor.
It came from a doctor. Yeah. So shortly after, he changed his story, saying that he fell asleep and woke up with the burns, making him one of the only people in history to survive spontaneous human combustion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good way to end that, man.
Yeah.
I like that delivery.
Yeah. So that's I really enjoyed the topics that we did tonight.
Yeah, totally, dude. Exorcism and fucking spontaneous human combustion. That's some gruesome shit right there.
Yeah.
Just Google images of that stuff. It's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, we're gonna get a little bit lighter as we go on, but like that one in particular, I just really well. Then what are we doing next week? It's Pirates and Ninjas.
Pirates and
Ninjas.
I'm gonna do Pirates of the Caribbean, not the movie,
but the story.
Because there's so many pirates out there from all over the world. I had to choose just like one.
Well, I picked the fact that you said that. Like I picked one clan of ninja that I'm gonna kind of focus on. They're called Mitsigumo, which I've talked to you about.
Yeah.
So getting back to our topic, what comes to your mind when you think about spontaneous combustion?
It's kind of just far-fetched for me. It's not something you really hear about anymore.
But it's documented.
I mean, when was the last time that one of these cases, though, was like came out?
The last one that I read was the one from the 70s.
70s?
Yeah.
So it's been a long time.
Yeah, that's the last one that I read.
And it just kind of makes you wonder, like, what changed from the 70s to now.
Well, I was actually talking to Chad, my buddy that I live with. His whole thing is like the new availability of like the internet and like cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
That like these.
Well, I always go into that about UFOs. That's why we don't really see UFOs anymore.
Yeah, and like so a lot of those cases might be explained away in a different way. Might be different. Like one of the things I was talking about when I was explaining like the stipulations or the commonalities is the body not spontaneously combusting. Excuse me, but like an outside source. But the whole definition of spontaneous combustion is spontaneous combustion from an inside ignition. So that's
where it kind of throws me off. Is like, how is that even possible?
Well, that's like looking it up.
Like what's combusting in your body?
Yeah. Well, and I looked at a couple things, like a couple of YouTube.
I mean, humans are kind of essentially batteries in a way.
Exactly. it's called BTU.
And we do have like sparks that go from like nerve endings to the central nervous system, all that, and in the brain, like neurons firing and all that. But it's not anything that could create a spark.
Yeah. Well, and that's not proven or disproven.
True.
Like, because I was excuse me, sorry. Actually, one of the videos that I watched was actually talking about like the human diet. And there's actually things that that humans naturally consume that are igniters.
Really?
Yeah, that are igniters. But
like what?
Like sulfur, stuff like because like
you'd have to eat sulfur.
You'd be surprised how many foods have sulfur in them. Just as a not necessarily an additive, but they're like sulfurous materials are in a lot of what we eat. But again, you have to subscribe to that idea of it actually like igniting inside your body.
I feel it's one of those things you have to eat a lot of
exactly
in order to make that happen. Like when I was thinking about like people like with their bodies igniting, I was thinking like, well, maybe like their pants were covered in oil, or maybe their skin is like secreting more oil than like people normally do. But even then, like skin oil is not flammable.
It's not, no. Well, like the one idea like that I talked about is the one that makes kind of, in a weird way, the most sense is having a lot of alcohol in your system. Because like there's alcohol engines, there's alcohol lanterns,
that kind of makes the most sense to me anyway. Because we tend to like sweat out alcohol, like they say. Like I don't know anything about like necessarily about it. They was like, oh, you got to sweat the alcohol out. Yeah. But even at that point, it's kind of diluted. It's diluted so much that it wouldn't be.
Well, think about somebody that like drinks real heavy. When they sweat, you can smell it on them.
Oh, that's true.
So
but you figure by then, like the alcohol is kind of working out of their system, and like those systems don't correlate with each other.
Well, they wrote that idea down in the Victorian era that I mentioned. Like that idea came from the Victorian era.
Okay.
But like that's to me would be like maybe the most plausible idea.
Yeah.
Is that you've got more flammable substance in your body.
But I gotta think like nowadays, especially even nowadays, like people are drinking way more.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true.
Than even in previous years. I mean,
well, is that true? Is that true?
I mean, I have no idea, but I would almost think like just because the rate of depression in this country has skyrocketed so much that I almost feel like people are drinking more to self-medicate.
Self-medication, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, we're not gonna say we're not, but we are definitely drinkers. As Keith takes a sip of beer, but that's just the way we are.
Well, there's so many other things. Like I said, I absorbed so much on this topic that my brain's almost like jumbled on it. Like one of the things that I read was like just human internal chemistry. That like I was getting at earlier, like the stuff that you ingest could, in this theory, the chemicals that end up combining.
Yeah,
because you do have you do have chemical combustion. That's a real thing.
Oh yeah, if you combine the two wrong chemicals, you can create an explosion.
Yeah. Well, like one of the things that trips me out is like I mentioned earlier in the reading that like the hands and feet get left behind. Like I don't understand.
That could be one thing too. Actually, is in the saying it just goes back to the 70s. Like is the the last time we really had a case was. There were a lot more chemicals out there,
Absolutely.
Like really crazy chemicals too.
Like they put arsenic in fucking paint and shit like that.
Oh yeah, you look at lead, all that stuff. Like those were, and at the time, like that was still in people's bodies.
Yeah, asbestos. Asbestos is actually a flame retardant.
Agent Orange was used like in pesticides, maybe.
Absolutely,
is what it was.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there was a lot more chemical exposure out there in that time.
There really was. And that actually would maybe speak to why the cases haven't been as prevalent.
Man, I can't believe we got to that point where we almost are like, we're trying to solve this. Like, why aren't these out around anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a possibility, but you could also argue nowadays we're exposed to more like food like preservatives and stuff.
Exactly.
And we could be exposed to even more chemicals nowadays, but it's got to be so regulated.
Yeah.
Even like way more so than it was in the 70s.
When did the FDA actually become in?
Well, it's really like, you look at like the EPA didn't really become a thing until like the 70s, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, and that's when they really start regulating the environment.
I absolutely think so.
So maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
But even then, like cases were extremely rare of, spontaneous human combustion.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and like in the reading and like some of the stuff I talked about outside of recording, like this has been something that's been in the reading in the that night in the 1400s, like that's kind of amazing. Like I kind of like you.
That's actually one argument against the chemicals we have nowadays because it did happen back then.
Yeah. Well, and then one of the reasons I wanted to tie these two subjects together was there's a lot of thought out there that spontaneous human combustion. I just like saying it. Spontaneous human combustion.
It's just a fun term to say.
It's actually a demonic thing. And that's an like I didn't read too much into that because I already had so much on like exorcism and all that.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is actually believed, and a lot of cultures believe that it's actually a demonic thing, that it's like a possession, and then you're taken to hell.
Yeah. Well, maybe nowadays too. Maybe it's just more explained away to something else.
Exactly.
Than what we would know is the definition of spontaneous human combustion.
Well, and I went ad nauseum into like looking into like current cases, and the most recent one I could find is the one that I cited in the 70s with the lady that her husband disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And like
I wouldn't be surprised if it still does happen, but we just don't hear about it or we don't chalk it up to it.
Well, and like you said,
maybe it's like, oh, well, they fell asleep and maybe they had a bunch of oil over their pants or something and they burned up.
Well, like the big phenomenon about it is like not people catching fire, but like nothing else around them catching fire.
That's the most amazing part.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I decided to note the wick effect, because it's like literally like lighting a fire, and all of the fuel is like right here. And when you have like I camp a lot, and when you have a centralized set of fuel for your fire, it tends to, this is a really weird way to put it, but it tends to want to use the easier fuel as opposed to, does that make sense? Like say you have like, okay, think about it this way. Say you have a fire that's surrounded by logs, but then you spray in lighter fluid, what's going to go up?
The lighter fluid.
Exactly. Like, so that's kind of like the way I think about it.
That's
like,
a good way to put it, though.
Yeah, like you could have fucking newspaper around a fire, and you spray lighter fluid on it, and it centralizes the burn. The lighter fluid is what's going to go up first.
Yeah.
But what's really weird is the fire going out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fires feed off of oxygen.
Absolutely.
So maybe there's some kind of bubble around these people in a way, like we just can't explain.
That's a brilliant. I like that. It's
just a thought.
Yeah, like maybe there's like some kind of.
That's probably not even possible. That it's just.
Well, it might be. It might be a gaseous bubble of like something that's not like I'm gonna continue to use the phrase bubble. Maybe it's like a.
Well, you hear about gas pockets.
Yeah, maybe it's like a gaseous bubble caused by this combustion that doesn't allow combustible gases.
It's funny how we're trying to explain the unexplainable.
I wish we could, dude.
Yeah,
I wish we could. I absolutely
like
wish
trying
we
to explain Bigfoot.
Yeah,
I had to get the Bigfoot references.
Yeah,
I'm the one, and I'm
you
the one.
did it this time.
And I'm the one who made it.
Hell yeah, give me a fist bump.
I can't reach you.
Oh yeah, we did a metaphorical fist bump, right?
Yeah, we got a new table. We can't fist bump anymore.
Speaking of that, coming up this Sunday, we're gonna do a recording release later of a full Bigfoot episode.
Yeah.
With my friend Cayman. I can't even say his last name, but he's
Hayden.
Is it Hayden?
I think so.
But he's.
If I screw that up, Cayman, I'm very sorry.
We're sorry, brother. But he's we're not going to go on that right now. We'll talk about it at the end.
Well, we got a lot coming up in the coming month or so.
Yep.
We got more philosophical bones coming up.
More Philly bones. I'm proud to say that I did two more episodes with Josh and Nick and philosophical bones. That was really fun. What were the two questions? Do you remember offhand?
Are we living in a hologram? And is there such thing in the multiverse?
Multiverse.
Yeah, those are the two we got coming up.
That was fun. Like I remember I was like sitting over in the peanut gallery. I was like, dude, I need it on this episode. And like I literally was like, Josh, you go over to that seat. I'm going to sit in my normal seat, and I need to be part of this episode. So that was a lot of fun for me.
And we got a Rufus the Villain's True Crime Corner coming up.
Yeah,
with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, that's one that I'm really putting a lot of work into. And
we probably mentioned about 3 times this whole show.
That's fine though. But I'm putting a lot of work into that one, and I'm also at the same time working on not stammering when I read.
It's getting there.
Yeah, like
we started editing our shows, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys will hear the cuts here and there, but
we're working on it.
Yeah, it's Nerdy Bones has hit a new stride, and we've said.
I know we keep repeating every week, and I'm sorry for it to us or to you for being a broken record.
But we're still figuring out our sea legs.
Yeah,
that's the way I want to put it.
Yeah,
like, we're still getting our sea legs.
We're getting there. Yeah. And thank you to anybody who's listening now and who's enjoyed the show. Yeah. If you want to ever get a hold of us, leave a comment or
nerdybonescast@gmail.com
or hit us up on Instagram at nerdybonescast or Facebook.
Anybody that wants to even call in for philosophical bones, just DM us on
or pose a question.
Yeah.
I'm looking for guests though. Yeah, I really want to get some more guests on.
That's why I brought that up, because like on Instagram you can just DM us, and both of us have access to that account, and we'll be able to.
We'll get back to you right away.
Yeah, pretty much right away.
Yeah.
Pretty much right away.
Or if you want to pose any topics for us on Nerdy Bones.
Yeah.
We got a month's worth of topics right now,
Yes,
but hey, we're always open to more topics.
I'm really excited to do him and I or Nick's going to do Bill Hicks.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to that one.
And I'm going to do Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
So that's one that I'm really looking forward to.
Definitely.
So all right, Nick.
I think we got everything out of the way.
I think it was a good episode.
We're always fucking masturbating at the end with ours.
Yeah, well, we have to topics. We have to toot our own horn a little bit.
We do, and yeah, like I said, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully, you learned a few things. I definitely did.
Hopefully, you guys did.
And hopefully, you'll listen to our next episode, which is Pirates and Ninjas.
Ninja vanish.
So you wanna finish this out with?
All right, Nick. Thank you for being here again.
Yeah, thanks.
And Nerdy Bones. And we're out.